Good day. This is the Corrupt True Crime Podcast, and I'm Charlie Cruz. Today's episode is about how a gap of 18 missing minutes on a secret recording exposed a conspiracy that brought down the most powerful office in the world. 5 men in business suits and surgical gloves, caught red-handed inside the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee at 2:30 in the morning. They're carrying cameras, lockpicks, and electronic surveillance equipment that shouldn't exist outside intelligence agencies. When police ask what they're doing, one of them has the audacity to hand over a business card identifying him as a security coordinator for the president's re-election campaign. This wasn't some random break-in. This was a political espionage operation approved at the highest levels of American government, and it's about to unravel the most powerful presidency in the world. The beauty of Watergate is that it didn't need to happen at all. Richard Nixon was coasting toward one of the biggest election victories in American history. The Democrats were in disarray. He had the race sewn up. But intense worry and obsession with control turned a sure thing into the only presidential resignation in American history. And it all started with a piece of tape on a door lock. Here's what you need to understand about the crew. These weren't amateurs. James McCord, the electronics expert, had spent 19 years with the CIA doing exactly this kind of work. The 4 others, all Cuban exiles, were veterans of the Bay of Pigs invasion, trained in covert operations. They toppled governments, for crying out loud, and coordinating from a hotel room across the street, Howard Hunt, a CIA officer who wrote spy novels in his spare time, and Gordon Liddy, an ex-FBI agent who reportedly held his hand over a candle flame to prove he could handle pain. This was professional-grade espionage with an unlimited budget from the president's campaign fund. The target was the Democratic National Committee offices in the Watergate complex, a posh building on the Potomac. They wanted intelligence on campaign strategies, dirt on the opposition, anything they could use. But here's the thing, they'd already broken in successfully over Memorial Day weekend. Got in, planted bugs, photographed documents, walked out like ghosts. Except the wiretap on the chairman's phone malfunctioned, and the photos came out overexposed. So they decided to go back and do it properly. That decision changed American history. The plan seemed straightforward enough. Wait until late Friday night when security is minimal, enter through the basement, take the stairs to the 8th floor, pick a few locks, replace the faulty bugs, snap some photos, and disappear before dawn. They'd done harder jobs than this in Cuba. They had CIA-grade equipment, inside knowledge of the building layout, and they'd literally done this exact same break-in a month earlier without getting caught. Confidence wasn't the problem. Overconfidence was. So just before midnight, the team enters the Watergate building in business suits, carrying briefcases like they belong there. They reach the 8th floor, pick the locks on the DNC offices, and get to work. McCord starts installing the surveillance equipment. The others begin methodically photographing documents. Everything's going smoothly. They're professionals executing a familiar operation. But here's where a tiny detail becomes monumental. To ensure quick exit routes, they tape the door locks open in the stairwell, horizontal tape that's less noticeable than vertical. Frank Wills, the security guard making his rounds, spots the tape around midnight, figures maintenance left it, removes it, continues his patrol. No big deal. Except the burglars, finding the door relocked, make a fatal decision. They tape it again. When Frank Wills comes back an hour later and sees that tape has reappeared on a door he personally removed it from, he doesn't shrug it off. He calls the police. The security guard making $80 a week just triggered the biggest political scandal in American history. The universe has a wicked sense of irony. 3 plainclothes officers arrive, treating it like a routine call. They work their way up the building floor by floor. On the 8th floor, they notice lights on in the DNC offices. Through the glass doors, they can see file drawers hanging open. They draw their weapons and announce themselves. All 5 burglars surrender without a fight. And when police search them, they find $2,300 in cash, mostly sequential $100 bills that can be traced, and address books containing phone numbers for the White House. This is not your typical burglary crew. More after our break.
My name is Tom Sachs. I'm an artist in New York City. For nearly 2 decades, I have been collaborating with Nike.
Nike running is for runners, Nike basketball is for basketball. Nike craft is for everyone else.
The White House press secretary dismisses it the next day as a third-rate burglary attempt. Nothing to see here, move along. But 2 reporters at the Washington Post, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, start pulling threads. The money trail leads back to the committee to re-elect the president, which everyone calls by its unfortunate acronym, CREEP. McCord's direct employment with the campaign is immediately obvious. The other burglars' CIA backgrounds raise questions about who's really behind this. For months, the White House manages to contain it. They use the CIA to try blocking the FBI investigation. They pay hundreds of thousands in hush money to the defendants. They coordinate testimony, destroy evidence, create cover stories. The compartmentalization is impressive, actually. Information is carefully siloed, so lower-level operatives don't know who gave the orders. It almost works. Nixon wins re-election in a landslide that November. Case closed, right? Except the cover-up requires more and more people, and each person is a potential crack in the dam. In January, all 7 defendants are convicted or plead guilty at trial. The judge, John Sirica, doesn't buy the story that these CIA veterans were freelancing. He threatens massive sentences unless someone tells the truth. McCord breaks first, writes a letter saying there was political pressure and perjury. The dam starts crumbling. John Dean, the White House counsel who'd been coordinating the cover-up, realizes he's being set up as the fall guy. He starts cooperating with prosecutors. Then comes the revelation that changes everything. Alexander Butterfield, a White House aide, mentions during testimony that Nixon secretly recorded every conversation in the Oval Office. There are tapes, actual recordings of what the president knew and when he knew it. The battle for those tapes consumes the next year. Nixon claims executive privilege. The special prosecutor demands them. When Nixon orders the special prosecutor fired in what becomes known as the Saturday Night Massacre, both the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General resign rather than carry out the order. Public outrage forces Nixon to appoint a new special prosecutor and surrender some tapes. But there's an 18.5-minute gap in a crucial recording, mysteriously erased. The Supreme Court finally orders Nixon to release all the tapes. And there it is, recorded 6 days after the break-in, the smoking gun. Nixon ordering his chief of staff to have the CIA stop the FBI investigation. Obstruction of justice from the Oval Office. Even his strongest supporters in Congress abandon him. Impeachment is certain. Conviction is guaranteed. More after our break.
Building a new product? Temez Labs takes you from napkin sketch to the App Store. Trusted by Fortune 500s for quality, security, and speed. Book your free strategy session at temez.ai.
On the evening of August 8th, Nixon appears on national television and announces his resignation, effective the next day. He never admits guilt, frames it as losing political support, but everyone knows the truth. The next morning, he boards a helicopter on the White House lawn and flies away, the only American president ever forced to resign in disgrace. Gerald Ford becomes president and a month later issues a pardon that spares Nixon from prosecution, but not from history's judgment. The burglars, the ones actually caught with the tools in their hands. They served prison time ranging from several months to 4 years. Hunt and Liddy got longer sentences. The White House officials, the chiefs of staff and attorneys general and campaign directors who approved it all. Most served time too. Haldeman, Ehrlichman, Mitchell, all imprisoned. Dozens of careers destroyed. Families ruined. All for intelligence that was completely worthless. The bugs picked up nothing useful. The photos revealed nothing valuable. They were winning without any of this. And Frank Wills, the security guard whose diligence exposed it all, he lost his job for talking to the media, played himself in the movie they made about Watergate, and died in poverty 2 decades later. The man who arguably saved American democracy never profited from it. There's your irony. Watergate proved something essential about democracy, that no one sits above the law, not even the president. It showed that institutions can hold, that truth eventually surfaces, that cover-ups often become worse than the original crime. It also revealed how fragile those protections are, how they depend on people like Frank Wills noticing the tape, reporters like Woodward and Bernstein following the money, judges like Sirica demanding truth, and officials like the Attorney General resigning rather than obstructing justice. The brilliance of the Watergate operation was its professional execution, the tradecraft, the compartmentalization, the inside access. The fatal flaw was the same hubris that drove it in the first place. They'd gotten away with it once, so they got cocky. They retaped that door. They carried incriminating evidence. They recorded their own crimes. The arrogance of power convinced them they were untouchable. Turns out, nobody is. The thing about brilliant schemes is that they always end with handcuffs and bars, because no matter how clever you think you are, the house always wins. Now, if you enjoyed our show, tap that follow button and 5 stars in our ratings. Catch you next time.
Grab News. Thomas.